This is Indian Country Today.
Esquili, yes, Thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Thalahungva. Here are the headlines for Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. It's primary day in 5 states, and 21 Native Americans and Alaska Native candidates are running for various offices. In Kansas, a 26-year-old woman is running for the State House of Representatives as a Democrat. Christina Haswood is Dene. If she wins, she would be the youngest current member of the Kansas legislature. Another Kansas House candidate is Stephanie Byers. She's Cherokee and is running unopposed on the Democratic ticket. If she wins in November, she will be the first transgender woman in the state legislature. U.S. Representative Sharice Davids, who is Ho-Chunk, is seeking a second term. She's running unopposed in the primary. Arizona has 11 Native candidates on the ballot. 3 are women up for re-election in the Senate, and 1 is up for re-election in the House. Finally, Michigan has 1 Native candidate on the ballot there, and Washington has 5 Native candidates. Tomorrow, Aaliyah Chavez will join us for a breakdown on each candidate and the outcome of their campaigns. This week, New Mexico celebrates a man from Isleta Pueblo who won the right to vote for natives in that state 72 years ago. Once Native Americans were granted U.S. citizenship in 1924, many still had to litigate their rights to vote. In New Mexico, Miguel Trujillo served in World War II. He was a Marine and was refused the right to vote. Trujillo filed a lawsuit against the county registrar, and on August 3, 1948, he won his case. He became the first Native American to vote in New Mexico. He died in 1989, but the anniversary of his triumphant win is now known as Miguel Trujillo Day. While some federal agencies are extending deadlines due to the pandemic, the U.S. Census Bureau is ending its counting efforts a month early. Yesterday, the Bureau announced September 30th will be the last day for all data collection efforts. Earlier this year, the agency said it would require more time to complete its data collection because of the pandemic. Census Bureau officials say they can collect a similar amount of data that has been collected in previous years through their accelerated efforts. Census numbers are used to determine the distribution of federal funding for the next decade. You can fill out your census form online, over the phone, or by mail. Americans are using a loophole and entering Canada through the waterways. They are bringing their boats and yachts and telling Border Patrol they're on their way to Alaska. This is known as the Alaska loophole. NPR reports the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have fined several Americans who were found hiking near a lake in Alberta. Canada is now cracking down on Americans who are trespassing. Locals are concerned about small towns where trespassers are stopping for fuel and food. Many are home to First Nations peoples and have no medical facilities. The U.S. and Canadian border was closed in March due to the pandemic. One Canadian calls America the biggest petri dish in the world. And now for an update on COVID-19 in Indian country, let's go to Jordan Bennett-Begay. Jordan?
In Oregon, the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, which is made up of 3 tribes, the Wasco, Warm Springs, and Paiute tribes, are battling a spike in positive cases. Tribal officials are, quote, very concerned about community or sporadic spread of the virus, and they said these cases are not linked to another case that is increasing in the community. The Confederacy reported a total of 192 cases, where 18 are hospitalized, and there have been 3 deaths. The Confederacy is performing random surveillance testing on high-risk community members, healthcare and first responder staff, and broader surveillance of the tribal employees. And the tribal government just came out of a 2-week lockdown and implemented another lockdown for 1 week due to the rise in positive cases. And the tribal government will reopen on August 11th. Warm Springs community members have also been challenged by a water issue since the end of May. And tribal officials reported that the utility company found a loss in pressure in the water distribution system, which may be caused by a break. So the untreated water and harmful microbes can enter people's water. Repairs to the water system will take time. For now, the Confederacy notified community members to boil their water before using it for drinking, making ice, washing dishes, brushing teeth, and preparing food, or they can use bottled water. Here's a look at the rest of the numbers from our database. There are 15,577 positive cases and 649 deaths in the Indian health system. Again, that was a total of 15,577 positive cases and 649 deaths as of August 4th.
Jordan Benebigay, thank you so much. And we'll be right back.
This is Indian Country Today.
The government structure for Alaska Natives is very different from the tribal governments in the lower 48. In 1971, a deal was reached that created corporations and shareholders for Alaska Natives. It was called the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, or ANCSA for short. 4 factors led to ANCSA: Alaska statehood, a land freeze to halt the transfer of land to the state, oil leases, and the need to build a pipeline from the North Slope to Valdez. Under ANCSA, 12 regional corporations were established, as well as more than 200 village corporations. Joining us today is Rosita Worl. She is the president of the Sealaska Heritage Institute, which is a nonprofit affiliate of the Sealaska Corporation. Welcome, Rosita.
Thank you very much.
Tell us what types of programs and services Sealaska provides for the people it serves, specifically with the Heritage Center that you oversee.
Well, first of all, under ANCSA, it does say that it is the responsibility of the corporations to provide for the social and economic welfare of our shareholders. But we go beyond shareholders, we go to the children or descendants of shareholders. And Sealaska Heritage Institute was created by Sealaska Corporation at the express demand, I should say, or direction from our elders. Our elders came to Sealaska and said, it is your responsibility to ensure our cultural survival. And so Sealaska created the Sealaska Heritage Institute. And our primary functions are, of course, cultural revitalization, cultural enhancement, language revitalization, and it is a revitalization at this point in time. And we also have many, educational programs, and it runs the full gamut from Baby Raven books to partnerships with the University of Alaska Southeast, with the Institute of American Indian Arts. And so, we cover, the full range of social and cultural activities.
And it's important to note that how the ANCSA settlement created these corporations to help with the Alaska Native people. And in that, they also included people who were living there who were not Native. And are you also providing services for their descendants?
No, right. Actually, the corporation is for Natives who are enrolled to the corporations. And but I also wanted to say that we created corporations because we wanted to have control of our land, and this was a motivating force for us to settle our Aboriginal land claims. I mean, all the other extraneous things were important for the state, but for Native people, it was to settle our Aboriginal land claims. And we went with corporations. I don't know that we actually thought about corporations, but it was the concept of control of our land. And we had seen from our brothers and sisters in the lower 48, how trust lands are controlled by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And we saw, where veterans where military folks would go off and then come back and find out that their lands had been, leased for 99 years. So we wanted to make sure that we had control. And then, of course, it sounds like, we're only for profit, but we're much more than that. As I said, our elders demanded, that we have the responsibility of making sure that we have ensure the cultural survival of our societies.
And that's evident with some of the programs that you provide there. Now, we're in this pandemic. How is the pandemic impacting those programs that you provide?
Well, we have many programs, and one of the first things that we said is we had to have the right mindset. And we said we have to look at the opportunities that this creates for us. I mean, we went through a lot of hardships indeed, but we are so lucky to have a great staff, a great team, and they work together. And we had young folks, and I think the young folks was really important because they understood technology. And so we were able to transfer many of our programs to virtual platforms. And so we would have, our, gumboot camp is for little ones. And we would have that over, virtual platforms. And for us, it was, difficult because, a lot of our people are, not well-to-do people. There's a lot of poverty in our communities. And I guess I was surprised to find out within the urban communities, we had people who didn't have internet, and I was really really saddened to hear that. And I kept saying, well, internet should be, it's just like food. I mean, it's food for our brain nowadays. And so I said, we have to make sure that people are paid enough, that they can access the internet. But a lot of our people also didn't have computers. And then in a lot of our villages, we didn't have good internet. So we had to figure out how do we serve them. And we ended up, buying a lot of iPads and sending those out to the villages, and would have, sending new programs, new material out into the villages, on on a regular basis. And even that was difficult, with the fiscal crisis that we're facing here in Alaska. Our ferry system was shut down. And so that created a lot of problems, where our communities, we have no roads connecting most all of our villages. We're a maritime people, and our people live on islands. And so without the ferry system, and the lower cost of a ferry system, we weren't assured of getting even regular food supplies into our communities. And if they had to depend on airlines, then that increased the cost of everything from education to food. So it really did hit us hard. But fortunately, at least for our programming, we were able, to deal with it. Like I said, I think we have an exceptional team. And they were the ones, that I think was the young ones that really helped us move to that virtual platform.
Well, you can always count on the young people to understand all the new technology. So that's good.
I've always said this is the first generation where older people are learning from the young, or they should be anyway.
Well, that's good. Who are some of the people you serve? People in the lower 48 understand that, say, if you're Apache, that you have a certain band of Apache in the tribe that you're a part of. So in Alaska, name us some of the groups of Alaska Natives that your corporation serves.
First of all, there are 5 major cultural groups in Alaska, and I know people would call them Eskimos, northern or southern Eskimos, but like everywhere, we want to be called by our own tribal names. So we have the Yupik, the Inupiat, the Athabascans, and Athabascans, have many relatives with the Apaches and the Navajos. And then we also have what they used to be called Aleuts, but they call it by their own name is Alutiiq and Unangan. And then here in Southeast Alaska, we have the Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshians. And so our corporations serve, primarily those groups. But I will say, that in our programming, if part of our job we see is our educating non-Native people about our culture, because we always say that the shame to our culture came from outside. And it was those outside people who didn't understand our culture. So we spend a lot of time, with teachers, educating teachers about our culture and history. And in fact, we're in a couple of days, we're going to have a very large virtual conference with, I think, about 250 educators from around the state, and to talk about education and the importance of culture in education.
That's certainly, a lot of educational institutions are planning for this future, not in the immediate semester, But when we look at the economic forecast for this pandemic and our economy, we're looking at 8 months to a year. So right now, how are you planning with your institution to prepare for 8 months to a year down the road?
Well, I have to tell you, I'm a very optimistic person. And here in Southeast Alaska, our economy was basically shut down because we are dependent on the visitors industry. But again, I still have faith in the future. And we actually are starting construction on our arts campus. Even though I'm a little short of money, I feel like, we're working very hard, to have, to ensure that we raise the rest of that money. But our arts campus is, it's not only about cultural survival, but it's also about economic survival. And we think, that the construction that's starting in downtown Juneau, it's a statement. It's a statement, that we have lived through hard times before and we have survived. And I think this is a common theme that we're hearing Indigenous people talk about, that impacts and stress is nothing new to us. It might have put us down for a period, but I think being resilient people, we still have hope, for the future. And I think the construction of our arts campus, is, one indication and statement to people that, we have faith that that we are going to be able to rebound, and with our visitors industry. And I think we have, a lot of others feel the same. So, we're being optimistic. But realistic too, because I have, planned for if I don't raise some of the money, I might have to cut back on some things in the arts campus.
Well, that'll be exciting to look forward to because, again, artists have that special place in our societies because they bring a different perspective to a situation. And of course, in this case, we're in a pandemic that has caused this collapse of the economy with the unemployment rate so high. So really trying to look at what's going to happen in 6 months to a year.
In Alaska, our people were really hit hard with the pandemic. We have artists who earn their livelihood through the sale of arts, and in a lot of our communities, we don't have large scale development, and our people are still dependent on hunting and fishing, but they also have to have access to cash, and one of the ways of access to cash is through sale of arts and crafts. So the capital cash economy, declined. So as a result, our people are more dependent on hunting and fishing, and that remains a struggle for us. And I, just having lunch with someone, and I said, why is it we always have to fight? Why is it that we always have to fight for what is rightfully ours? And right now we're very concerned, about, for example, herring eggs. And herring eggs is something we get from herrings, of course. It's a real delicacy. But for the last several years, it's been a struggle for us to be able to maintain that subsistence lifestyle or activity. And so in our villages, they're very dependent on hunting and fishing. So we've had to work to make sure that the regulations are not too restrictive. I mean, of course, we want to protect our wildlife populations. We're not going to hunt them to death. We've been living here for 10,000 years, and we have to live in harmony and balance, But in time of need like this, our people can't be criminals to feed their families.
So, Rosita, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
This is Indian Country Today.
Welcome back. Jacqueline Estes is our national correspondent based in Anchorage, and she joins us now to talk about the fishing industry and COVID cases there, and a huge story about the resignation of a longtime Alaska Native leader. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi, good morning.
What's the latest with the fishing industry?
Well, the last time we talked, you remember, people were really worried about an outbreak because you'd have a region with 3,000 or 4,000 residents and 14,000 workers coming in from out of state. And the state and the fish processing plant operators put down some really strict restrictions. So workers would be tested before they came to Alaska. Once they arrived, they'd be in quarantine for 14 days. They'd get tested again. They'd get their temperature taken every day. And yet, things seemed to be going really well for a while. And then a couple of weeks ago, there were outbreaks within days of each other. So the numbers went from a couple of dozen to 360 in a matter of like 4 days, I think it was. So I'll tell you about one of them just because it's a good example of the problems this poses. An American Triumph factory trawler came up to Unalaska out in the Aleutian Islands from Seattle with a crew of 110 people. And when they got to Unalaska, 7 of those 110 people didn't feel well. So they were taken to the tiny clinic in Unalaska with its staff of 4 people and tested. And out of those 7, 6 tested positive. So they said, well, we're gonna test everybody on the ship. And they did. And out of 110 people, 85 tested positive. So it shows you how well this host this virus migrates from one host to another. But the other interesting thing about it is that out of the 85 people who tested positive, only 7 felt unwell. So there were outbreaks also in Juneau and in Seward. And most of the people in those places who were infected were non-residents, but in Anchorage, at the plant where they had an outbreak, they were residents. And that means that they were not staying on plant grounds. Every day at the end of their shift, they'd go get in their car, drive home. They'd be together with their family. They might stop at the grocery store. So officials are really worried that the 60-some people who tested positive at that plant in Anchorage would be carrying the disease throughout the community, and we'd have another huge outbreak here. The other thing about this is that the plant operators did so much to try and prevent the spread of disease. So it's surprising.
And then in Alaska, you have people, all of those people who are tested, you said more than 80 people tested. Then what does that do for the test supplies for the people who live in that village? Is there enough left over for the people themselves to get tested?
Evidently there is. And the thing is that the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium in Anchorage has been pulling together supplies and staff and equipment for any community that has an outbreak. So they have these teams, excuse me, that they send out to help. So Fort Yukon in the interior of Alaska had an outbreak as well, and they sent a team there to help out. So it's not that they have plentiful, ample, lots of everything, but what they have, they are allocating as needed in the places that need it the most.
Okay, well, we'll continue to keep an eye on that story as it develops. And now there was a shakeup in Alaska with Catherine Gottlieb and her husband. Tell us what's going on there.
So Catherine Gottlieb is kind of a giant in the tribal health services field here in Alaska. She won a MacArthur Genius Award, several years ago, and she's pretty much recognized internationally for the innovations that she put into a primary care center here in Anchorage. And they serve 65,000 people. They have a wide range of services. the way she describes it is the relationships are based on, the care is based on relationships. So you pick your primary care provider, and you can usually see them whenever you make an appointment.
But Catherine Gottlieb resigned.
She resigned after her husband and 2 other dentists, he was the chief of staff, and the 3 of them were fired for signing off on dental work they hadn't done. And so there was an independent investigation, and there have not been charges filed, though.
Okay, we'll continue to follow that. Jacqueline Estes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, good to be here.
And thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves. Your life is precious. I'm Patty Thalahungva. Join us again tomorrow.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run. Standing rock.
This is Indian Country Today.